What's up? So today we're going to talk about thirds because in the world of sound, thirds are extremely important. And maybe a few examples. When you're making a T-line, this is a pipe. The best place to put your speaker is about a third of the way down the T-line. And then, of course, the short third, you cap off. So in this case, this one is, I don't know how much of this you can see, but you would measure a third and then put your speaker here, count this end off, and also put some dampening material down in this end, and you'd get a pretty good functional T-line. Now, if you're going to use a transducer to create a soundboard, you would not use a legal pad, but this is for illustration purposes. You would put your transducer a third of the way down from, say, the top, a third of the way down, and a third of the way over. So it would be 1/3 from the top to bottom, which would be about right here. And then a third of this would be about right here. So this is where you put your transducer to give you the best sound. If you're building a speaker box, speaker to put with your stereo, I'm using an amp box, which is ironic actually. That's kind of cool. I could put a speaker in an amp box and I would have a speaker box. Okay, never mind. Just ignore that last one. See, when you get older, your brain does things. This is why we tell dad jokes, because our brain is always going in the wrong direction. So you're putting some speakers in here, right? And you got your little woofer down here. You got your tweeter up here, right? Well, a lot of times you'll notice that the tweeter is off center. It's not in the center of the box. It's not in the center of the top of the box. It's off center. How much? About a third. Yeah. The woofer will be in the center simply because of space limitations. But the tweeter in mid-range will often be off center for the same reasons. Guys, that's the cool part. All of these things are for the same reason. So there are many more. I just haven't, I don't have them all in my head. But essentially, the reason for the speaker box is because when the sound comes out of the speaker, okay, it's going, if you have it in the center, right? Got it right here. The sound comes out, it's going to get noise from the edge on both sides. If the speaker is located in the center of this cabinet, it's going to get the same noise on both sides and thus amplify that dirt, that noise. If you move it off center, the noise that gets over here will be a different frequency from the noise over here. So although you're still getting both of those noises, now they're not the same noise, so they're not as noticeable. Same thing if you do off center. You don't want to have it in the center here for the same reasons, this edge and this edge. So having the tweeter and the mid-range, the two speakers that produce the most noise that your ear notices, having those off center on both directions help with that noise problem, okay? When it comes to our transducer, if you have the transducer located in the center, it causes the panel to vibrate like this, okay? The same, and like this, the same. Well, what happens? The same problem. You get this tone, this vibrating tone, and this one, and this one, and this one, all amplify because there's two of them doing the same thing. So you get real peaky sounds in certain areas, the vibration frequency of the panel. But if you put it off center a third here and off center a third here, now there's no equal distances in the panel. So you're going to get different resonances all over the panel simply by pacing the driver, the vibrator, a third of the way in and a third of the way down. Fixes that problem. And again, you notice how it's the same problem? Okay, another one with the tube. Similar thing. You've got that resonance going down the tube. If you put the driver in the center of the tube, you've now doubled up the problems. By moving it a third of the way off, you have one resonance moving and another one moving opposite it, kind of. So the offset resonances smooth out the problems and create an overall better sound. And it's the same thing. It's just linear instead of square. Another example, if you guys have heard of brake step bridge, they tested this on Mythbusters, but they did it wrong. And I love the show, but they didn't always test things right. Brake step bridge, I was in the military, and we were on a road march once. Very distinctly remember this. And we were crossing a bridge. And one of the drill sergeants had hung back and was at the beginning of the bridge yelling at everybody to break step. Because even though we were road marching, you get it drilled into your head so much to stay in time with everybody else that even when you're not told to, even when you're not supposed to, your brain is automatically doing that. So everybody in the road march was stepping together. And going across this bridge, there was, 1,000 people, roughly? 1,000 plus in columns going across this bridge. And that constant step, do, 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 as they're walking, 1 foot hits, 1 foot hits, 1 foot hits, 1 foot hits. They slowly, slowly, slowly put a little bit of pressure, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of pressure. And that was making the bridge start to sway side to side. Just like how a metronome will make all the other metronomes on a loose-goosey table get in time with it, because it slowly pushes it until the table starts to resonate and then the metronomes all get in line. Same exact process was happening. And nobody walking realized it because we were stepping in time with the sway, however fast we were going. We were stepping in time with it. As soon as you broke step, we're part of the way on the bridge, broke step. As soon as you break step, all of a sudden you feel that sucker. It's doing this. You're like, whoa, that's strange. It's a strange feeling to have the bridge moving side to side. But again, what we needed to do was get out of that frequency range. So once we changed the timing, everything went chaotic and it all became, the bridge would stabilize, you see. It was no longer doing this. It would go ahead and stay stable because now all the frequencies were on thirds, or, they weren't on halves. They weren't in time with each other. They were all broken. And that's the idea when you're dealing with sound reproduction. You don't want any sympathetic resonances to build up, because that's going to severely increase the level of a specific tone or a frequency and completely mess up the soundstage. And sometimes it may enhance a certain note. Like, for example, someone was mentioning that a subwoofer box without bracing can increase your SPL. It can, if everything is lined up. If the box is resonating naturally at the frequency that your subwoofer is playing the best, and the same frequency that the car likes, right? If all that stuff lines up just right, then a loose or soft box can actually increase your SPL. Same thing with panels that flex in your car. Normally, sound deadening helps the panel flex because it makes it stiffer and heavier and keeps it from vibrating at that sympathetic fashion. But if your vehicle happens to have some panel flex somewhere that jives with the subwoofer, it can actually increase your SPL. You can actually lose SPL by stopping those panels from flexing. This has happened to many of my bass head friends. They sound deaden it, and all of a sudden, they're getting a lower score. It sounds better, but their score goes down because they're losing that sympathetic flex they were getting somewhere. So while generally panel flex is bad and loosey-goosey subwoofer boxes is bad, sometimes in the SPL world, those two things can actually help you. But it depends a lot on all the details lining up. So usually it's an accident. You're just like, well, that's pretty loud right there, even though I tuned this box for this frequency. Say I tuned it for 36, but for some reason at 40, it's just, a lot louder. That's because your vehicle's cabin gain is adding to that. And also some of your panels may be flexing right to add to that. Or they may be flexing wrong to take away from it. You don't know. But it is possible, yes, for a subwoofer box that vibrates to actually increase your SPL score. It's also possible for it to decrease your SPL score. I'd rather go with the flat line of a box that doesn't vibrate and then just go from there, because it's always going to decrease the sound quality whenever it vibrates. It's going to add, again, it's going to add this. Okay, it's going to add this to this. All right, supposed to be the speaker. Okay, the speaker, that's what we want to hear. We want to hear that. We don't want to hear this. Because that's going to increase that sound output, and it's also going to do it in such a way that's probably not the best way to listen to it. So 1/3, there's a ton of it. Anytime you're dealing with sound, thirds are always a thing. So if you're wondering about something, oh, yeah, there's another one. I just remembered another one. On your SQ stereo system in a house, I don't know the exact rule, and believe me, when we go into getting into these weeds, there's going to be a whole lot of pitchforks coming out, because I'm going to give you a really general, basic idea. And there's going to be tons of people saying, no, you're a retard. You do it this way. Duh. And then they're going to put their finger up in there whenever they're drinking their tea, because of course they will. But in home SQ, when you're setting up your speakers, one basic rule is to pull them 1/3 of the distance from corner to corner out of the corner. So you have 1/3 of the distance out over here and 1/3 of the distance out over here. So when you're looking at your wall that your system is on, they should be 1/3 space and then a speaker, and then 1/3 of the space and then another speaker, and then 1/3 of the space and the wall. And the same distance that they're pulled out from these walls, they should also be pulled out from this wall. Okay? That's the optimum spot for pinky T. Okay? And if you're like me, you just throw them straight in the corner, flat against the wall, and call it good. But that's not how how the hardcore audiophiles do things, and they would scoff at you harshly if they were to see your backwoods 1980s stereo against the wall setup. They would absolutely scoff at you and mock you in their Reddit forum. There's that. You would no longer be invited to tea time. So anyway, 1/3. It's all about thirds. You guys ever thought about that? There's many more examples. Of course, I'm just, it's a thing. I've noticed it quite a bit, and I keep noticing it. I can't think of all of them right now, but yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff. If you look at most tower speakers, you'll notice the woofer is a third of the way from the top to the bottom. And then the mids and highs are a third of the way from the top to the bottom and a third of the way from the left to the right, or vice versa. It's all about thirds, man. Something about thirds. Anyway, guys, I hope you found this entertaining. And I find these talking points to be interesting sometimes. So I try to get them out there to you guys whenever I think about them. I was like, And now that you're out there, now that I've mentioned it, you're going to start noticing the thirds. You're going to start noticing the thirds. You're going to notice the thirds in the theater where the orchestra is set up and the rooms. You're going to notice the thirds in the stage and where the speakers are lined up on stages and concerts. You're going to notice the thirds at the movie theater when you see where the speakers are located in there. Sides, a third of the way up the wall, from the top to bottom. You're going to notice these thirds everywhere. And you're welcome for that. Anyway, guys, peace.